Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. Today we're taking a look at the Bestech Swordfish. This is a knife that I can't believe I haven't reviewed already, because this is the very first Bestech I ever got. And if you guys are familiar with this channel, you know that I like Bestech quite a bit. And that blade is pretty dirty. Anyways, this is the knife that kind of started that, and I figured it was time I gave it a review. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Start with our blade length measurement and everything. This is not a small knife. This is a 9-inch knife, and the blade length comes in at pretty much 4 inches. So long, slender kind of design. I guess I wouldn't call this a big knife, more like just a long knife. Okay, let's do our size comparisons. There's our Rat 1, which, you know, the Rat 1 is honestly a bigger knife than I sometimes think it is. Like, I know it's not a small knife, but it sometimes shocks me how big it is. The Swordfish is a little bit longer, but the Rat 1's not far off. And here's the Rat 2, which is a very small knife. Next up, let's go ahead and do our Civivis, the Elementum, and the Praxis. And what we can see here is that the Praxis looks bigger because it's taller, but it is not quite as long. I actually did an edge-to-edge between these two way back in the young days of the channel. So if you want to go and watch a very not good quality video of mine, you can go do that. This knife is still, or what was I going to say? Oh yeah, edge to edge. I haven't done one of those in a while. I'm sorry, my thoughts are everywhere today. Next up, to our flagship comparisons. Here's the PM2 and the Bug Out. There we go. This is actually the first review I'm filming back in my new apartment here, so I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to situate the camera and everything. It's a work in progress. To close out our size comparisons, let's do it against a couple of other Bestechs. Here is the Paladin. Love that knife. And here is the Ascot, another knife that I really like. And all of these knives are just about the same size. Alright, so one more thing. Let's compare it against another knife with a 4-inch blade. There we have against the Cold Steel Spartan. Okay. Alright, let's go ahead and cut over to some cut test footage, and then we'll be right back. Alright. Bestech Swordfish. Let's do some slicing, shall we? So, D2 steel on this blade. Yeah, that's a pretty good slicer, especially, and I'll talk about this more at the table, but it's a flat grind that's not very tall. This is not a very wide blade, but it's a pretty aggressive flat grind because this edge gets pretty dang thin. Yeah, no problems there. That's absolutely good slicing performance. How's that action? Got a little something in there right now. What is that? Get out of there. Not sure what that was, but okay. This flipper tab is really nice. Rockets out of there. Ah. Really nice. Drop to your thumb. Great action. Really nice action. How are the ergos? In the hand, it's just fine. You have a little bit of a thumb ramp here. The handle's very neutral. It is contoured a little bit. Clip doesn't really bug me. You've got a lot of room on the handle. It's a comfortable knife. It's not very ergonomic. You know, if you're going to go out and have a street fight, slash water balloon fight and your hands are wet while you're trying to shank people, I guess. This isn't going to be the greatest because there's not a whole lot of anything locking you in. You have a little bit of something here. You've got the flipper tab, but I mean, I think it's completely fine for this knife and the style of knife. I guess talking about this style of knife and pointy blades, yes, this knife is very stabby and pokey. So, if that's your deal, there you go. Yeah. What do we have? Carry. That's what we have to talk about now. So the clip is not reversible. Wah, wah, wah. But it's a good clip. It's nothing fancy. I've said this before. I think Bestech makes really good functional clips. Wish the screws were flat, but the clip is recessed, so that's nice. Yeah, it goes in and out of the pocket with barely any resistance. It's a good clip. Even though the screws are button screws, they don't really catch on your pocket at all. It's a good clip. How heavy is it? I mean, I would say for a knife that has 4 inches of blade, it's not super heavy, but it's going to be heavier than some people want to carry, so, okay. It's a pretty narrow knife, so it carries pretty well. Flipper tab does stick out quite a bit, but that kind of stuff doesn't really bother me, so. Anyways, let's get back to the table. And we're back. Let's go ahead and get into what I like and what I don't like about the Bestech Swordfish. So the first thing I like is that I like the design flow of this knife, and I like the name, Swordfish. It completely matches this knife, 100%. This long, I mean, this blade, I guess it's technically a drop point. It's almost a spear point. Well, let's see, is that tip in line with the pivot? You know what, we can figure this out with more than just my finger. Let's get a, okay, so pivot. Yeah, you know what, it's a spear point. So yeah, the spear point blade, very kind of neutral handle. It looks like a swordfish. And the whole design flows so well. I just think it's a good looking knife. And yeah. Also, if you hear any noises in the background, it'll be my roommates. So I apologize in advance. Anyways, next thing, let's go ahead and talk about the ergonomics. This knife is very comfortable. It's not very ergonomic. I made a whole video talking about ergonomic versus comfortable handles. You can go check that video out. Maybe I'll leave a card. But this knife is very comfortable. What we can see here is that the scales are contoured, which is really, really nice. The grip itself is very neutral, and it has this little swell here, which means your hand, it really gives your hand something to wrap around. The jimping up here is really nice. Usually I don't like jimping that's this short here, but as you can see, they gave the blade a little bit of a riser, and with how long this handle is, that's just the perfect place for your thumb to be. So that's really, really nice. Again, very neutral grip. You have a lot of handle here. So if your hands are bigger than mine, this knife will definitely work for you. The pocket clip is not a hot spot in my hand. You can see it's kind of fat and flat-ish. It does sweep up here, but not super high, not super dramatically. So it feels good in the hand. There's no sharp edges or anything. Even the lock bar, you can feel it, but it's not jimped, so you don't get any hot spots off of lock bar jimping, which happens on certain knives. In fact, it does happen a little bit on the Paladin, but not very bad. So yeah, very comfortable knife. Next thing, the blade. This is a really good blade. So it's a flat grind, and as you can see, it's not a very tall flat grind. You have this swedge up here, which is nice. It makes the blade look pretty cool. Unlike a lot of Bestechs, actually, I'll point this out real quick. A lot of Bestechs do like a two-tone finish, so satin here and then stonewash right here. This blade does not have that. This blade's all satin, so that's pretty cool. D2 steel, which I don't mind. I like D2 quite a bit. I know a lot of people are getting bored of it, but it performs good and I don't have a problem with it. You do have a sharpening choil here, which is really interesting. They did it kind of square, but it's not the best I've ever seen, but it'll definitely work. Now back to this grind. This flat grind is very aggressive. You do not have a whole lot of room to come from here to the edge, but they have made the most of the available space. And this knife is actually pretty thin behind the edge. If you can look down the sights there, so to speak, this knife's about 15, 16 thousandths behind the edge. That's a really, really respectable grind for this short of a blade. You know, if knives such as the Praxis have a lot of room to come down here. You have a lot of time to get rid of material before you get to the edge. With this knife, they didn't. And I think it would have been better with a hollow grind, just personally, but they made it work here with the flat grind just fine. Now, obviously, this shape of blade is going to be very useful for puncture tasks, and that tip is very, very fine. So any type of puncturing task, this little thumb wrap helps with that. Slicing, it works, but it's not, you know, for me, typically I like to have a wider blade for slicing. So this knife is not like a cardboard slicer, but for just cutting and especially piercing tasks, this works very, very well. Next thing, the pocket clip. I have some issues with this. We'll get back to it, but it's a nice pocket clip. It works good. It's nothing really special to look at, but it does work in and out of the pocket just fine. It's inset into the scale, which means no clip wiggle. I like that. Next, let's talk about the action. This knife just... oh man, it is an excellent action. It fires out of there, and it's so smooth on the close. Really, really nice. Part of that has to do with this flipper tab. As you can see, the flipper tab is curved in such a way that it gives you a lot of leverage. You see the scale goes into the flipper tab perfectly. I love seeing that. Love it. The flipper tab's not jimped, but it doesn't really need to be. It's also kind of triangle shaped. It's kind of pointy, so push buttons you can do, but it's not the most comfortable. I would definitely recommend just light switching this knife. And the flipper tab is set up so well for that. It's very comfortable. Like I said, your finger just glides into it. Gives you a lot of leverage. A lot of leverage. Really, really nice. Great action. Like to see that. This knife also has pretty nice bearings. They're not like the Teflon multi-row bearings in the Paladin. These are more like what Saviti uses. They're in kind of a bronze cage, so that's cool. The detent on this knife is very good, like most Bestechs I've had. You can see the detent ball. Right there. Early detent too. Like you're over it right there. So that's nice. Man, the inside of there needs a good cleaning out. Lockup is very solid. There's no blade play or anything. And now let's go on to kind of talking about some of the finer details of this knife. I love this G10. The multicolor, you know, they give you like this faux bolster look with this blue. Bestech uses really nice G10. Let's see if the camera will focus here. I love G10 where you see that almost wood grain pattern in there. It's really, really nice. And these are two separate pieces of G10. At first I thought it was just one piece. They are two separate pieces. And they meet seamlessly. It really, really nice. Yeah. Centering, perfect out of the box. I've had this knife for a long time. Has not come uncentered. It's really nice. I did take it apart one time, and that's it. The action was good out of the box, too. And look at all these details here. So something Bestech does I really like is they don't just give you a flat, well, they don't just give you like a slab of G10 with chamfers around the edges. This handle here is rounded on the edges, so it's nice and comfortable, and then they give you nice milling in the G10 that just kind of helps it feel a little more nice. Backspacer is really good, really flush here. You can see there's like a little bit of a area in the steel for the backspacer to fit in. It's really, really cool. The stop pin is collared, so there's a stop pin. It has a deep gouge in the blade for the blade to come up and completely cover it. I really, really like that. When the knife is open, this is something that I really like. So flipper tab has that curve. And we already talked about when the knife is closed, that curve lines up perfectly with the scale to help guide your finger in. Well, when the knife is open, look at this. That flipper tab just curves perfectly into the handle here. It gives your finger a really nice guard. That is really, really cool. Access to the liner is really good. They give you this little square cutout. You can get to the liner no problem. And there's no jimping on the liner, but it doesn't really need it. There's enough access there that you can just get in there, push it over. And the liners aren't sharp or anything. So that's really, really nice. And we already talked about how in the hand that causes zero problems. And yeah, that is awesome. And this knife only costs $52. Yeah, $52 for all these little touches that are just so nice. I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of that. Not to mention, you can get this knife in a bunch of different varieties. They've got like orange and black and green and black, this blue and black. And I think they're coming out with some coated blade versions too. Just really, really nice knife. I can see this as fitting into both an EDC as well as a self-defense type role. And it feels really fancy, so it could also be like an XL gents knife in some ways. It's just really nice. And the price, $52? That's great. So what am I not liking so much? Well, to start off with, I kind of alluded to this a little bit, but I do kind of wish this was a hollow grind instead of a flat grind. It's not a huge deal. Just, you know, with a flat grind, especially since it's this short, the blade will get thicker, a little bit quicker as you sharpen it. With a hollow grind, that might have been avoided a little bit, but, you know, whatever. Next thing, this pivot may or may not do it for some people. I don't mind the pivot. I've heard some people complain about it. My girlfriend actually says that this pivot looks like a grumpy face. And I think it kind of looks like a ninja. But whatever, you may or may not like that. Next thing, there are quite a bit of screws on this knife. 1, 2, 3, 4. T6s, but you know, it's definitely not as bad as the the Hoke Deca. So yeah. Next thing, the pocket clip. It's not reversible, which is a shame. And while it does work in and out of the pocket just fine, it's a good clip. It works good. I do wish the screws were flat. They don't catch on my pocket all the time, but sometimes they do. And that's just not fun. So I definitely wish Bestech would start flattening those screws out. But they haven't so far. Wish they would. Next thing, I do with the pocket clip too. It's a very satin finish pocket clip. I almost kind of wish this was a black clip, honestly. I don't know. That's just me complaining. The satin isn't bad either. With the blade, I kind of wish this came in a stone-washed version, or at least in the two-tone that Bestech does a lot. Now, I'm trying to think. I do believe that Bestech is coming out with a at least partially black coated blade version. I don't know. I'll throw up pictures on the screen if I remember to. But yeah, there we go. Okay, and I almost closed it off way too early. This is why you look at your notes, people. The lanyard hole. I could have done without that. In fact, I think this would have been a great knife for a lanyard pin and the backspacer. I'm not someone who usually complains about lanyard holes like a lot of people do, but in this case, I don't really like where that lanyard hole is, and I don't know. I think this knife could have done without. So, not a whole lot of bad here. Let's move on to my final conclusions. My final conclusions are that this knife my final conclusions are that this knife is a great bang for the buck. Oh, man. So in a lot of ways, this knife reminds me of kind of a better fit and finish version of the Paladin. This knife, these two knives are the same price. This one does feel just a little bit fancier. Maybe it's just because of the handle material, but I really do like this knife. Now, I'd be lying to you if I said that this is the exact size and shape that I need for my everyday EDC, because it's not. In fact, this blade for me isn't particularly what I enjoy most. It's not what I would always choose to carry, and that's why I do consider the Paladin to be a better EDC. But this knife is just so good. It's built well, it has nice details, it feels really good in the hand, it is a useful knife. There are plenty of things that this knife is useful for, besides just self-defense and stuff. This is still a good EDC knife. And especially for the price, I keep coming back to the price, 52 bucks. Yeah, this is really nice. It feels good. And this kind of, again, this is going to be kind of another statement on why I like Bestech knives. I feel like they're just built really solid. And of course, you know, Bestech always does things that I don't particularly like the pocket clips. I wish they'd make pocket clips reversible. I wish they'd flatten those screws. Whatever. Bestech uses a lot of D2. They don't use very many other steels a lot. I know that probably drives some people nuts. Again, I don't mind D2 at all. In fact, I like it quite a bit. So my final conclusions for this knife are that, yeah, it's 100% recommendable. Absolutely. And you should get one. It's a very well-made knife, and it's kind of an XL gents carry. I'll say that again. You know, kind of like the Ascot from Bestech. Kind of that, you know, XL gents carry, except this is a lot cheaper than the Ascot. Well, about 30 bucks cheaper. But, yeah, it's a really good knife. Definitely an easy recommend. And that's going to be it, folks. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, go ahead and like the video and leave a comment below. And subscribe. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one.